It's time for you to learn Goat Format's attacking rules. This is the most common set of rules that newer players get wrong. Welcome to Goat Duels. Today I'm going to break down everything that you need to know about how attacking works in Goat Format, including one important mechanic that nearly half of Goat Format players don't know about. Now, we all know that attacking happens during the battle phase, but before you can attack, you must first announce that you are entering the battle phase. This is called the start step. When you enter the battle phase, but before you attack in the battle step, your opponent can activate a card like Threatening Roar to stop you from declaring any attacks. However, if you wait for your opponent to attack and then activate your Threatening Roar, it will not stop this attack because it has already been declared. So if you want to use Threatening Roar to stop all of your opponent's attacks, be sure to specify that you are using it when they enter the battle phase. Now let's talk about the biggest misconception of Goat Format's attacking rules, the battle step. Each time you declare an attack, that happens during the battle step. Now what's confusing to some players about the battle step is that it's made up of two different windows. They don't have names, so I'm just going to call them the first window and the second window. The first window is when you actually declare your attack, and it's also the window in which a player can respond directly to that attack declaration. So cards like Mirror Force, Sakuretsu Armor, and Magic Cylinder can be used in that first window and only in that first window. The key thing to note here about that first window is that it can't have more than one chain. So if your opponent attacks with a monster and you activate Sakuretsu Armor and your opponent chains Solemn Judgment, you can't use Mirror Force. Mirror Force can't be chained to Solemn Judgment, which is spell speed 3, so this play would require creating two chains in that first window, which is not allowed. However, if your opponent chained Book of Moon instead of Solemn Judgment, you could add on to that chain with your Mirror Force, because Book of Moon is only spell speed 2. Now this brings us to the second window of the battle step, a window that unfortunately many players are unaware of. The second window is simply one in which we are past the point at which an attack has been declared, but before we have entered the damage step. Sakuretsu Armor cannot be used here, but Book of Moon can, because it does not have any special timing requirement. In fact, a fairly common play in Goat Format is to attack an opponent's monster and ask, "Do you have any response to my attack?" And if the answer is no, go, "Okay, I'm going to use Book of Moon," and flip your monster face down. Because now we are past the point at which the defending player can use Sakuretsu Armor. However, one of the biggest uses of this second window of the battle step is to use a card that might destroy the attacking monster, but that doesn't have Sakuretsu Armor's special timing requirement. So let's go back to our Solemn Judgment example. Our opponent attacks and we use Mirror Force. Our opponent uses Solemn Judgment. This chain happens in the first window of the battle step and we let it resolve. Then, in the second window of the battle step, we create a new chain and activate Raigeki Break to destroy our opponent's monster before the attack goes through. This is a legal play in both current format Yu-Gi-Oh! And Goat Format Yu-Gi-Oh! And this second window of the battle step can have as many chains as either player wants. You could even set up a big play where you have something like Raigeki Break, Solemn Judgment, okay, new chain, Ring of Destruction, oh, Solemn Judgment, okay, I'll create a third chain, and use Book of Moon. You could do all three of those chains in the second window of the battle step. Then we enter the damage step, which is just where we figure out which monster dies and how much battle damage is being taken. There are two key differences in how the damage step works in Goat Format. The first is that the only cards that can be used in the damage step are counter traps and spell speed 2 effects that modify a monster's stats. And of course, effects that trigger in the damage step, like Mystic Tomato. This, however, means that Royal Oppression and My Body as a Shield cannot be used in the damage step, since they don't do any of these three things. The next important point about the damage step is that we can only have one chain of cards that modify a monster's stats. So for example, say we use Rush Recklessly in the damage step to boost our monster's attack by 700, and our opponent chains Solemn Judgment to negate it. Now, we can't just let that chain resolve and use another Rush Recklessly in the damage step, because then we would have two chains. This is also why Cypher Soldier plus Limiter Removal is not the killer combo that you might think it is. We can't let Cypher Soldier's pump resolve and then use Limiter Removal to double Cypher Soldier's attack to 6,700. Lastly, it's important that we talk about replays in Goat Format. You might know that a replay occurs when you declare an attack and the number of monsters on your opponent's side of the field changes. We can then change how we're attacking with our monster. However, replays have one small difference in GOAT format. If a replay occurs and you decide to call back the attack of the monster involved in the replay, you could then attack with that monster later during the same battle phase, even though it technically already did declare an attack. A classic example of this mechanic in action involves Scapegoat and Azura Priest. Suppose we control two monsters, a Sengen and an Azura Priest. We attack our opponent directly with Sengen, he uses Scapegoat, and now we call back our attack with Sengen, then have Azura Priest kill every Scapegoat token, and then have Sengen attack directly. This type of play is very powerful in GOAT format. So that's all, folks. Be sure to share this video with any newer GOAT format players that are confused about how the battle phase works. And if you learned something from this video, be sure to give it a like. Thanks for watching.